We will call the Whitestown BZA meeting to order. Everybody stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America,
to the republic for which it stands,
one nation,
under God,
indivisible,
with liberty and justice
for all.
All right. Brittany, roll call.
Andrew McGee,
Here.
Mark Pascarella,
Here.
Philip Snowberger,
Here.
Craig Arthur.
Here.
Okay. And item D, we have a new member appointment to the BZA, Craig Arthur. So welcome back, sir.
Thank you very much.
And we, during member appointments, will also, since this is our first meeting of 2021, we'll have election of officers for president and vice president.
I'll go ahead and make the motion to elect Andrew McGee as president and Mark Pascarella as vice president of the BZA.
I'll second that.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any discussion?
And I will remind everyone for this that we will have to do a roll call vote for a vote since we are doing online.
Thank you, Brittany. Since no discussion, go ahead, Brittany.
All right, Andrew McGee,
Aye.
Mark Pascarella,
Aye.
Philip Snowberger,
Aye.
Craig Arthur.
Aye.
Okay. Motion passes. All right, we'll move on to item 2, approval of the agenda and the December 3rd meeting minutes. So everybody had a chance to look those over?
Make a motion to approve the agenda and the meeting minutes from the December 3rd meeting.
So moved.
Andrew McGee,
Aye.
Mark Pascarella,
Aye.
Philip Snowberger,
Aye.
Craig Arthur.
Aye.
Okay. And Brittany or Jill, is there any public requests to speak on any topics not on the agenda?
No, I have not received any.
I've received none in the chat box.
Okay, we'll just give a moment. If anybody does want to speak about anything that's not on the agenda, you can go ahead and either message Jill or put it in the chat box. All right. I assume there's none now, Jill, still?
No, I've received none.
All right, thank you. We'll move on for item 4 or 5. Brittany, are there any presentations or unfinished business?
No, there's not.
Okay. We'll move on to new business then. Docket BZA 21-001-BA RAM tool variance. If the petitioner,
I believe Kent Franson was going to be presenting tonight.
And you should be unmuted.
All right, can you hear me now?
yes.
Good. Well, I'm not seeing anything on the screen as far as video, but it's not essential that you see me. Katie, are you on here? You're on now, are you not? Okay, I'm not hearing you, but I
Yeah,
saw you.
Katie is there. We just couldn't hear her. She unmuted, but she is there. This is John Hughes. We can see her.
Okay. So Katie, Brittany, let me start. This is an application for a outside storage variance for a project that some of you may recall a little over a year ago by Eric Osterhaus. It's a 3.5 acre parcel on a parcel of land known as lot 7 in the Whitestown Crossing to commercial development. It was a spec building that was approved, roughly 40,000 square feet in size, and the building has largely been completed. They've been having difficulty finding a tenant for the space. They'd hoped to have, I thought they might have 2 or 3 users in the space, but they have found Ram Tool out of Birmingham, Alabama, to occupy the entire building. Ram Tool is a privately owned company, which, as I say, is headquartered in Birmingham. It's a construction supply company that sells and stores construction materials and supplies to about 43 branches around the country. It does not currently have any facilities in Indiana. This would be its first. And it needs the ability to store some of these construction materials outside. Now, when this project came before the BZA and a special exception was granted, the intention of the owner developer was that there would be no outside storage. And we did represent to the planning department and the board that that would be the case. But over the last year or so, we have come to realize that without outside storage, it's going to be very difficult to find a tenant or a user for this space. So we have worked with our engineering group, Innovative Engineering, Jerry Kittle and Greg Dempsey, to identify 3 areas where we would have outside storage. Katie, why don't you show them the site layout, please? Okay, this is the site. It's no longer a proposed building, but that is the building, and the area to the west of the building is known as Block D, and the pink highlighted areas are the areas where we would have outside storage. It's also the area where the trucks would come in and out and use the loading docks there on the west side of the building. The recognition is that we needed to screen that area so that neighbors to the west and neighbors to the north were not seeing a bunch of outside storage. So we have proposed to put a solid 8-foot high wooden fence that would basically, in the areas you can see where it's black, surrounding that Block D, 8-foot high fence. And then there would be, we've agreed in negotiations with Candace Warman, who has some property to the north and to the west, that we would put a 8-foot high fence there at the northeast corner of the building to screen the employee and customer parking lot to the east of the building. Katie, go to the last photograph. We'll show the board members what this fence would look like. That's the only fence we could come up with so far. That fence is only 6 feet high. The fence we would put in would be 8 feet, but it would have a similar look to it. It would be a reasonably attractive wood. Nothing would be stacked above the height of the fence, so we wouldn't have pallets or other storage equipment that would stick out above the top of the 8-foot high fence. So that's the plan. Let's go back, Katie, and show the photographs that we've taken from various angles. This is facing west. Saratoga is back in the back. And since this project has developed, there's been quite a bit of mounding placed. You can see mounding and some landscaping on that mounding behind the building. This would be the area where the outside storage would be secured. And let's go back to the site drawing, Katie, please. Fence would extend all the way from the building along the western boundary of this storage area, then south, and then swing around, and then basically connect up with that southwest corner of the building. They would have a secure entrance there. The trucks would come through and they would have a way to open that gate, but they would keep their material in that area secure from thieves or wind blowing it out, etc. The stuff that would be stored out there typically include new building products such as rebar, wire mesh, filter fabric, Adobe bricks, barrier fencing, Unistrut, lumber, and other construction-related products. This is pretty much new stuff that can be staged outside. So we wish we didn't have to come back and go against what we represented a year and a half ago. But frankly, the site's going to be very difficult to develop without the outside storage. And we think it can be done in a way that it's not going to be adversely affecting the view shed of people from the west or people from the north, which is primarily where the complaints have been. Keep going. That's from the rear of the building facing north. There would be a fence along there. That's facing west from the dock area. And then facing northwest, Canada Warman's facilities are over in that area. So combination of the fencing, the 8-foot high fencing, the existing mounding, and the landscaping that's being planted, we think that it will not be objectionable to the neighbors. And in fact, Jeff Jacob, who's on the call here this evening, is represented Ms. Warman, and they agreed not to remonstrate against this project if we would do the fencing as we have outlined here. So that is it in a nutshell. You're not seeing me, and I feel like it's a little bit hard for me to see what's going on, but that is our presentation. Jerry or Greg, do you have anything that I've forgotten that needs to be gotten into the record here to start the process?
No, I don't think so. I think we're ready to answer any questions anybody may have.
I think that the fellows, Jeff Yarman and Chad Ferguson from Ram Tool, are also on this call, although I don't see them on my screen. Chad or Jeff, are you guys on here? I think you were planning to be on here.
Yeah, this is Jeff Yarman, and yes, we're on. Thank you for, I think you summed it up well, and certainly we appreciate everybody's, allowing us to participate and to hear our request. We try to be good neighbors. We are excited about coming to Indianapolis and to Whitestown, and certainly are happy to answer any questions or concerns that anybody might have.
Thank you. That's all the petition has at the moment.
Okay. Well, thank you. We will then open the session or this agenda item for the public hearing. Is there, Brittany or Jill, have you received any requests to speak from the public regarding this item?
I did not receive any public requests to speak.
You're on mute, Jill.
I haven't received any comments in the chat box either. Oh, Jeff Jacob just requested to speak.
Okay.
Good evening, BZA. I will be brief. Mr. Franson accurately represented the agreement that we have reached with Kanda, now Smith. And it really contains 4 points that I wanted to be very clear on. One is that that there will be a 8-foot solid wood fence installed around sort of the block D area and on the northeast corner of the building. And the additional commitment that Kent accurately represented, I just want to be clear on that, is that there will be no items stored above that 8-foot mark. And if that's something that the petitioner wants to change, our request would be that they raise the fence. So having said that, we are satisfied with the commitments that the petitioner has made. Appreciate your time.
Okay. There any others who wish to speak regarding this item?
I've received no more comments, no.
Okay. Thank you, Joe. So we'll close the public hearing. Brittany, do you want to give the staff report?
Yes, I will give my staff comments, and then You're fine. So I have, I will present finding of facts for the variance request, and then I have 4, and then there is one more that I'm going to have John speak on as a fifth one. So staff finding of facts is 1, the approval of the use variance will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community because the use of the property remains unchanged. The outdoor storage would be safely screened by a perimeter fence. 2, the use and value of the area adjacent to the property included in the variance will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner because it will not change the character of the zoned area. This will add additional screening to the neighbors for this site, and the surrounding business in the area currently utilize outdoor storage. 3, the need for a variance does arise from some condition peculiar to the property involved. A commitment was made at the time of special exception for the property before a user was selected for this property. 4, the strict application of the terms of the zoning ordinance will result in unusual and unnecessary hardship as applied to the property for which the variance are sought because the owner has been unable to obtain a lease agreement for the site without the use of outdoor storage. The owner has made multiple attempts to fill the space. However, the ability to store goods outside has been a constant issue in securing an agreement. And then John will speak on the 5th.
5th one is that the approval does not interfere substantially with the comprehensive plan. The property in this area is currently zoned in a manner appropriate for outdoor storage, and surrounding businesses in the area currently use outdoor storage.
Okay.
Andrew?
Yes.
I will add one thing, sorry, just a comment that has gotten brought. We have within our UDO, one of the rules for perimeter screening and using a fence is that the materials to be stored behind the fence are not able to exceed the fence height. So that is one of the regulations we have within the UDO, that the materials that are being screened by a fence are not allowed to be stored above that fence height for the screening.
Okay, so it's not something that would need to be added to any kind of motion.
Yes.
No, the only thing we'll need to add to the motion is if we're going to agree to the conditions that the petitioner and the potential remonstrator, who said they won't remonstrate if they're added, we'll probably want to add that as a condition. And I believe, and Jeff or Kent, correct me if I'm wrong, but I wrote down 8-foot solid fence around the block D area. And then did you say the northeast corner of the building? Is that correct?
That is correct. As represented on Mr. Franson's exhibit, the intent of that is that it will screen the parking area from the northern boundary.
We agree with that, Mr. Hughes, and there's a drawing that shows where those fences will be located.
So I would just say if the BZA agrees with that condition, we just make that accept staff report together with the 5th item I added and the condition just indicated, and we'll attach a copy of the drawing that Mr. Franson put together on the order that I'll circulate after the meeting.
Okay. Is there any discussion among the board or questions for the petitioner?
Not that, go ahead, Mark.
I would say I'll I may kick it off a little bit to get the discussion just going. You know, anytime I see something like this come aboard, I mean, I always kind of think about what happened in the past, obviously what's going on now, and then also protections in the future. The past, I'm not wild about somebody who says we're going to do something, we won't do outside storage or anything similar, and then coming back like a year and a half later and saying, well, actually, we need that. With that being said, I do think you recognize that our job is to make sure it's kind of a balancing act, because we need to make sure as times change, we also as a board stay nimble enough to be able to be accommodative to business, but also protect the citizens of Whitestown. So I'm not saying I'm against it, but I do take a hard look at it just because I think it does change. I do think some modifying circumstances here that do help are the fact that they have promised to put the fence in, whereas from my understanding before, there was not going to be a fence at all. It also does seem like the area that they're talking about looks like a parking lot right now, or will be used for the trucks coming in. And so the fact that they're going to actually use storage there and put up an 8-foot fence, I don't think hurts the surrounding area, or at least it doesn't seem like it does for people viewing that in, because it's not like it's taking away a view of a lake or something that was pleasing to the eye. So I think that helps me kind of come around to understanding why they need it. And obviously it seems like market demand has put a premium on that outside storage. So I start to get pretty comfortable with the fact that they are looking to build the 8-foot fence, and they have promised that they won't go above that. I think those should be part of our conditions. It does seem like at least one of the local area residents is on board with that. So I think that's a big key component, because it looks like they do have buy-in from at least some of the surrounding areas. And we do have no public dissension, which I think is also a big plus. One question I do have is, are there any, with this, what's going to be stored there? Is there anything that we're worried about from an environmental impact?
There.
Jeff or Chad, can you respond to that?
Yes, sir. So no, there would not be anything stored that would have any environmental concerns. You know, these are all items that are either used, or I say all, majority of the items that are stored outside are items that are used either for forming concrete slabs or tilt-up panels, or items that actually would stay inside of those concrete slabs or tilt-up panels. It's all going to be, you know, wood, metal, you know, plastic barrier fence, concrete, you know, nothing that even has any kind of remote environmental concern.
Okay, that's good to hear. So it makes me feel a lot better. I kind of covered the past and the present, but one thing I also look at is the future. And I try to put myself a little bit as far as residents around that area, or people that are going to be seeing that area. And one thing I've seen in the past, and this is not particular to the case, the petitioner here at all, but just generally, sometimes I've seen some of these construction sites that, while they start at the beginning, it being very nice and solid wood fence and looking great, over the years, sometimes that could deteriorate, especially just with the nature of the business. And I would hate to have something like 5 or 10 years down the road where all of a sudden, you know, that fence is being torn apart and nothing's being done to fix it. And so I guess maybe my question is, Jonathan, and I don't know if this is up for board discussion, but is there something where you could put in where, you know, every 5 years or something of that nature, you know, we would have the option to revoke that if for some reason we did not feel it was being taken care of?
So the question is, can we put a condition on the approval that if the fence was not maintained, is that what you're saying, Mark, or just the property as a whole, or?
You know, that's a great question. I mean, the property as a whole is always a concern, but I think or if we're going to allow this outside storage, if for some reason, due to the nature of the fence, you have a lot of construction equipment going in there that can sometimes bump into the fence, or at that point create destruction to that fence. And then obviously operating a business, that may not be the top priority of fixing that. And I guess I'm trying to alleviate the future concerns that all of a sudden that deteriorates to the point where it now becomes an eyesore, which I think is what everybody around has been trying to avoid.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can put in the condition that they will install, sorry, my dog just started barking, that they will install and maintain the 8-foot fence. I'm concerned about having sort of annual or semi-annual or every 5-year review. But if the condition is that they're going to install it and maintain it, and they fail to maintain it, then you could just do an enforcement action. Wouldn't have to come back to the board. Brittany and Jill and Todd can just bring an enforcement action and say either maintain this or get your outside storage out.
That's what I was going to ask, if we had something already under code enforcement that would cover.
Sounds like we probably do because of the UDO provision that Brittany mentioned, that you got to keep things under that. So it sounds like we probably already have a code enforcement mechanism, but I think the intent of what Kent and Jeff Jacob have worked out here is that there's going to be a fence installed, and I'm sure Jeff would tell me they sure hope it's going to stay there, and I'm sure Kent would say that's our plan, is to install and maintain it. So I think that's a reasonable condition that gives you that protects your concern, Mark.
Yeah, and that's exactly what my concern is, that we're not talking 5 or 10 years down the road and half the fence is there or a quarter of the fence is there, panels are missing, and things are, garbage has collected around outside the area that's been broken, and also at that point kind of violated the spirit of what everyone's talking about here today by putting that fence up. So I think I can work with that. That's what I'm saying.
Great.
Greg, did you?
I have a quick question. This may be just semantics, but I just want to make sure that we're being intentional here in regards to what a solid fence means. Are we talking solid wood, but any type of style, or are we speaking specific to a design such as shadow box or just single pieces of wood, but making sure that it's not like a picket style, obviously. I understand that there was a picture that was represented there, but that's not actually, I think, the intention of what's going to be built. So I just want to make sure that we're perfectly clear on the definition of a solid wood fence. So I guess for the petitioner, is there an intention of making a specific type of solid wood fence, such as shadow box, which is, that double layer of wood on both sides, which has, I would say, the most coverage, or is it just single pieces of wood?
Greg, can you respond? I don't think we want shadow box because that allows for light and the visibility to get through. Greg, can you describe what this will be?
Yeah, I think what we were looking at, Craig, is basically what was represented in that picture. It'd be a privacy type fence, because you're going to get the most. It's going to block the lights the most. It's the hardest to see through from any angle, and it's going to be the simplest to maintain as well.
Sounds good.
One other thing I would like to note on one of Mark's comment regarding maintaining the fence. This fence isn't just for screening; it's also going to be for security. So it's going to be in their best interest to make sure that it's kept up to help keep people out of that yard.
Thank you, Greg. Just one follow-up question. Is there any intention on adding additional lighting requirements? Because I know that you said that this is partially to be for security. And I know at other sites in the past that with the additional screening to see the materials, from a safety aspect, there's been some additional lighting added. Is there any intention on adding additional downlit lighting as well?
None that I know of at this time.
Okay, thank you, sir. I have no further questions.
I think it's just follow-up comments. I think it sounds like again, I'm moving into that. If we were to do that, we make sure they will do the upkeep. And then on my side, this is speaking for me solely right now, that they do adhere to the conditions that John and Jeff had talked about with the 8-foot fence, and nothing can be seen over that. I think that those are reasonable requests to adhere to, and also to approve if we were to move forward with this.
Yeah, I'll add a comment. I drove that site and yesterday and took a look myself, and you know, I kind of agree with you, Mark, that I take concern when somebody says something a year and a few months ago that they're not going to do something and then come back later and said, oh yeah, we do need that. But after discussion here, the height of the fence, and then also looking at the site myself, the berm that's existing on the west side, along with, you know, no objection after this commitment from the neighbor to the northwest. I think myself, I feel comfortable with this, especially with the height of the fence as well. But I was going to bring up, and I think Jonathan already did, that northeast corner. I don't believe that was in the staff report, that fence. So we just, again, need to make sure that that also is there, is the customer parking blocking the view from the customer parking. So
the way I've written the conditions so far, and I'm working to find the language from the UDO so we can mirror it with regard to the storage, but it says the BZA imposed the following reasonable condition: petitioner to install and maintain an 8-foot solid wood fence of a type similar to that depicted in the attached Exhibit A, which we'll use Kent's exhibit, enclosing Block D and the northeast corner of the building as represented on the attached Exhibit B, which we'll use Kent's exhibit. And then I'm adding no items may be stored over the fence line, but I want to make sure I mirror the language from our UDO. Is that consistent with what the board's talking about?
And just for clarification, that the fence on the northeast corner is going to be 8 foot as well too, correct?
That's the way the condition's written, and as I understood the conversation, that's
okay.
The way it's written.
Hey, John, can I speak on that?
Yes.
So in our UDO, section 3.8, there's the height of the outdoor storage display. And let me, 3.8, outdoor storage and display, and then it is under 3.8.B.3, outdoor storage areas must be completely screened from view from any adjacent property. Outdoor storage areas must be screened on all sides by at least 7 feet high, with the solid wall fence or landscaping. And then I just had it where it says that the storage cannot be.
Are you talking about, Brittany, where it says all materials cannot be stacked no higher than 12 inches below the top of the wall?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then as well as section 4.3 of the UDO. Sorry, I'm on here trying to jump back and forth between sections. 4.3 is fence standards. On 4.3G, it says fences must be maintained and in good condition and operating order. So all of that will be enforced and maintained as it is part of the UDO.
And also, Brittany, remind me that there's something also about environmental impact, right? As far as hazardous waste or anything of that nature.
Yes, we do. So we have in here also and I think it's chat 4.6. We have performance standards that apply to industrial uses that has smoke, outdoor odor, toxic materials, noise and sound. So there are for outdoor storage as well as any sort of industrial uses. We do have performance standards that apply that do put restrictions and limitations on things that could be an environmental hazard like that.
And I know they're saying they're not going to do it now, but I just, that's a really big thing, because obviously once the land gets contaminated, now we've got a whole host of new problems. So
Yeah.
I appreciate the focus on that.
I wouldn't just to speak on the legal side. I don't want to put in here that, this is my thought and we can talk about it, but I don't think we want to say they may not store hazardous materials or otherwise, because that should just be the general law. And I don't want people to think that we have to put that into conditions. That's
I agree with
just the
that.
law.
Yeah.
So as long as everybody's okay with that, what I added then is consistent with Whitestown UDO. Stored materials must not be stacked higher than 12 inches below the top of the 8-foot solid wood fence. Equipment and vehicles must be stored at their lowest state. I added that onto the condition.
I think it's pretty reasonable. I mean, my biggest concern when they brought up the outside storage was I've been to quite a few supply houses through work and stuff and see a 3-level pallet rack sitting outside, and it's, 12, 14, 16 feet tall. And that would just be not good to look at if I was living in the neighborhood behind there. But since they got to keep it below the fence and they're going to put up the fence, I think they're doing everything they can, keeping the best interest of the surrounding areas in mind, while still trying to be productive and, occupy a building, contribute to the town.
Yeah. Any other discussion or questions from the board?
The only thing I would probably add in there, and this is just for the record to make me feel better, just because we're doing this and changing it, we are certainly not setting a precedent that we will, always go back. I just state that for the record so that people understand that this is an exception. I guess that's the whole point of a board of zoning appeals.
Well, yeah, that's our job for those exceptions.
Yep.
Yep. Petitioners beware, you have to present evidence that convinces Mark.
We understand.
So just for reference, when is, I guess, anticipating starting to move in there if this gets approved?
Jeff or Chad, what's your timeline?
This is Chad. If we can get this approved, then there is a little bit of interior work, primarily finish work that we'll have to do. Obviously, we'll have to get the fence installed and all of that secured, which I'm assuming will have to be permitted. Some pallet racking and things in the warehouse. I would envision maybe between 90 and 120 days, depending on, what that permitting process and approval and everything else is like. If we could do it sooner than then, we certainly would. We're anxiously awaiting, hopefully getting this approved so we can get in there and start doing business as soon as possible.
And did I hear correctly as well that you guys are going to occupy the entire warehouse?
Yes, sir. We would take the whole space, and our business model, is we cater to commercial contractors primarily. The vast majority of the materials that we sell are delivered from our warehouse to the job sites. We do have a little small showroom where people can come in and buy things over the counter like most supply houses, but the vast majority of our business and most of our other 43 locations is done, by our delivery fleet delivering those materials to the job sites. Our expectation would be that it would be very low traffic, and pretty low key for everybody around.
So I don't want to interrupt discussion, but seeing there was a pause there, because this one has some pretty technical provisions to it, when you're ready for a motion, maybe I can try to craft something that gets us there and gets good minutes together. Just let me know when the board's ready.
I'm ready whenever you are, Mr. President.
Same here, Mr. President.
I don't have any other further questions.
Okay, is there a motion to?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve BZA 21001 VA Ram tool variance with the conditions of the fence being 8 feet solid wood, both in both areas, including the northeast section, with all conditions as Mr. Hughes has stated.
That's good enough for me. So those conditions will be 8-foot solid wood fence. We'll attach an exhibit to a written document that looks like what Kent showed us around block D in the northeast corner of the building. And we'll attach an exhibit that shows what we mean by block D in the northeast corner. And then we'll also say that stored materials must not be stacked higher than 12 inches below the top of the 8-foot solid wood fence, and equipment and vehicles must be stored at their lowest state. And then the other findings are as represented in Brittany's staff report and with the 5th item added by me, which is what the statute requires.
I'll second.
All right, motion and second. Andrew McGee,
Aye.
Mark Pascarella,
Aye.
Philip Snowberger,
Aye.
Craig Arthur.
You muted yourself, yeah.
Jill will unmute you.
Aye. Thanks, Jill. It's a habit from work.
Yeah. It's hard to remember. And I've always got background noise and I'm like, I wish I could just mute and unmute. Members of the board, I mean, this is my second meeting I've been with you. And what I would like to do, because of the technical nature, particularly of this one, but a lot of these variances, is I'm going to put this in a more formal order than maybe you've seen in the past. I'll circulate it to all the members, and then Brittany can print it off. And if people can stop by the town hall or Brittany's office at some point and sign your name, just showing that you approved it. I've written it up now. I've got to make a couple changes. I should have it circulated tomorrow, so you can all make sure I got it correctly. And then we can have that attached with the petitioner's paperwork.
Sounds good, Jonathan.
Thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you, sir.
All right. So that motion did approve. Is there any other business or announcements, Brittany?
We just had submittal day today. We received no submittals for BZA. The next regular scheduled meeting is for Thursday, April 1st. However, with receiving no submittals, be on the lookout because it probably will be canceled due to lack of agenda items, but I will keep the board posted.
It's not like an April Fool's joke, is it?
Yeah, we have a docket of 10 of these things, sure.
All right. Well, there's no other business or announcements. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay. I don't think we need to do a roll call vote for this. So all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody, and good luck
Thanks,
with the
guys.
project.
Thanks. Take
Have
care.
a good evening.